Today my guest is Justin Etheridge. Justin, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing great. What do you do?
I'm a .NET developer doing primarily web-based applications, mostly ASP.NET and VC, but all C#, mostly .NET.
I know you use a lot of LINQ. I saw you had a series on TechBug. I'm a big TechBug fan, so I subscribe to that. And we really haven't done a show on LINQ yet. We've touched on it with some of the ORM people talking about Hibernate or Indeed framework, but I kind of want to hear about what are the basics of LINQ, what it is, why it's important, how it works.
Okay. So LINQ, LINQ's a couple of things, I guess. So first and foremost, it's a set of language features, built into C# and VB.NET, and it's a set of framework features that are built into .NET Framework to enable these LINQ queries. At its most basic level, it's a set of language features and framework features that allow arbitrary queries to be formed over arbitrary data sources.
Okay.
But this is enabled by several different things.
Okay, and an arbitrary data source could be a collection of objects. It could be some data in a database. Mm-hmm. It could be some XML in an XML document.
Yeah. So basically anything that you're able to pull out an enumerator, or you're able to take a LINQ query and transform it into some sort of mechanism to query whatever your data is.
All right. So you said pull out an enumerator. In effect, I think the requirement is that it has to implement iEnumerable, right? Or is it iQueryable? I always get it mixed up.
So iQueryable is the interface that is built into .NET Framework, which allows you to it's basically the interface that you have to implement if you're going to implement a LINQ query provider. Okay. But a query provider can be a wide range of things. So you might have a query provider like LINQ to Objects. LINQ to Objects, basically what it does is it just allows this you to use these LINQ queries, this set of extension methods in the .NET Framework to form queries over sets of in-memory objects. Okay. So LINQ to Objects basically operates entirely against a collection of objects you'll have sitting in memory somewhere. Right. And in that case, these extension methods that are in the .NET Framework, really all they need is a iEnumerable of some object in order to loop over and do the work.
So I've got a list of customers, and each customer has a last name, and then I want to run a query to do things like what, like filtering,
sorting, being able to skip over elements, being able to perform operations like zip, combining lists, doing all sorts of things.
Talk a little bit about how that works under the hood. This was introduced in .NET 3.5, I think. Is that right? Have I got my numbering right?
Yeah.
3.5. So that's when that part of was .NET 3.5 was C#4 and it was VB10, I think.
Sure. I don't know. C#4, but
anyways, C#4 implemented some things like extension methods and so on that made it possible. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay. So actually, I think it was C#3, but
3 was it? Okay, sorry.
So extension methods were one of the big things. They implemented in order to make it possible. Extension methods actually are just static methods that have some extra syntactic sugar added to them via this keyword. Yep. Which is a very overloaded keyword down in C#. But basically, this keyword that allows you exactly. That allow you to call a static method on an instance, but make it look like it's a method on the class. Right. So what it is basically the first parameter to these extension methods are whatever type you want the method to apply to. Okay. And so instead of having to say, I want to call my static method and then pass my instance as the first parameter and then some additional parameters up to that, you can just say instance.method name, just leave off that first parameter, and then the .NET compiler just does this magic and turns it into a call that looks like it's occurring on that instance object.
Okay, and that's kind of nice for a couple of reasons. One, it can make your code more readable. Because sometimes if an object is actually performing an action, it makes sense for that method to be part of that object. And also it allows you to create methods on sealed classes. It allows you to extend without modifying, which is a nice, solid thing to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it definitely allows you to allows you to fake like you're extending, an internal or a sealed object you don't have access to. So that's very useful, and that's exactly why they needed it, because in order to implement this stuff, they needed some way to get those operations across a wide array of types that may or may not have all descended from the same object hierarchy. So you couldn't just
rather than modifying all those types, they created extension methods for them.
Yeah, because they would have broken a huge number of types.
So this, I think we said a lot was C#3. What were some of the extension methods that we created?
So the LINQ extension methods specifically were things like where, skip, take, order by descending. There's a huge list of them. Group by, join, union.
All these sound like SQL keywords.
Yeah, they're all based around like set operations or relational type queries. So they're all involving lists of data and being able to perform this SQL type operation.
Okay. So if I wanted to take a list of customers that all have a state from all the ones that are state equals Virginia equals VA, then I can just customer.where. So what does the syntax look like? I know we don't have code on here. But.
So you'll have a customer.where, and then you'll basically in that where method you'll pass a lambda expression.
A lambda. What does lambda do?
So lambda expression was essentially, this isn't technically correct, but it's close enough. It's essentially more syntactic sugar on top of anonymous methods which are introduced in C#2. And so all it is essentially you can think of it as a delegate that is passed. It doesn't really have, in this case, doesn't have a reference to a variable or anything. You're just basically passing a delegate into the method.
Okay.
That you can then execute.
And this is this thing where it's like M and that little, I don't know what you call this, but it equals greater
than. It's the goes to
operator. I call it goes to, but not everybody does. So M goes to M dot, I guess we use C in this case, it's customer. Mm-hmm. C goes to C dot state equals VA.
Yeah.
To filter out only those customers whose state is Virginia.
Mm-hmm. And then that if you're dealing with an in-memory list of customers, in that case, that where method is just going to take that list of customers, enumerate over it in memory, and literally just perform actually execute that lambda expression against each customer in that list to satisfy whatever you ask it to do.
And what does that return? What does that lambda expression return? Or what does the where method return?
The where method is going to actually return an IEnumerable customer.
So we're going to start with an IEnumerable, we'll end up with an IEnumerable. Mm-hmm. So then we can take that IEnumerable, we can call another extension method on that as well. Mm-hmm. We can say sorted.
So we can chain them together.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes our queries can look something like customers.where some lambda dot order by some lambda dot what else? Group by or
group by or
we have all these things chained together. Mm-hmm. That gets a little bit clumsy after a while. We have too many of these things chained. At least in my opinion, it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to read for me. So, but there's some other syntactic sugar on top of that, right?
Yeah. So I mean, you have to be careful about how much how I guess judiciously you use it, where you use it, and how you format it, and everything. But there's actually more than one syntax you can use in LINQ to form these LINQ expressions. There's actually the built-in query syntax, which is the one that it's funny because you actually don't see it as much anymore. When they were first showing off LINQ heavily, that was the syntax you saw everywhere. Okay. It seems like people have kind of, at least in a lot of the code I write, and a lot of the code I see, it seems like people have almost fallen back more to the method syntax because I think people are more familiar with it.
Interesting.
But the LINQ query syntax actually looks a lot like SQL expressions.
Yeah.
So you'll say something like from C in my customer list where C dot state equals VA select C.
Okay, so it looks like SQL except that the select is at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a flipped. It's flipped so that select ends up at the end, mainly for IntelliSense purposes.
Right. So what I do, I'm not sure what your style is. I like the the lambda syntax for simpler queries, for simpler expressions. If all I'm doing is filtering, maybe filtering and sorting, lambda's perfect. If I'm doing more than that, if I'm filtering, sorting, maybe projecting into another class, maybe doing something where I find that the SQL-like syntax is more intuitive, it's more readable to me.
Yeah, there's certain operations like joins. Joins in the method syntax are really ugly. And so there definitely are things that are much cleaner looking in the SQL, in the query language more syntax. So yeah, it depends on what kind of expressions. I guess for me, 99% of the expressions I write are simple filters or sorts or orders, and for those kind of queries, the method syntax is much more terse. And probably a little easier to read.
Anything else you can tell me about getting started with LINQ? What if somebody knows nothing about LINQ, but just getting their first exposure to it? Where would they start?
So the first thing you make sure you have is Visual Studio 2008. Or higher. So C Sharp 3. And basically everything you need to know is in the system.link namespace.
Okay, so you have to say using system.link.
Yeah, I think it's a system.link if you're just using link to objects.
Okay.
I think that's right. But there's a lot of good documentation on MSDN. Obviously, I have my series on TechPub called Mastering LINQ, which actually goes over mainly link to objects. Toward the end of the series, it kind of touches on link to SQL and some of the other providers that don't that operate differently. But it's a really good introduction to link to objects, and it starts off very, very slow and very.
I liked it a lot. And I think if you learn link to objects, it's the query syntax doesn't change whether you're using link to SQL, Entity Framework, link to XML, or some other people that write their own providers. It's still that syntax remains the same, so that knowledge is applicable.
Yeah, that's really the beauty of LINQ and what all the work that they did was to really get that generic query syntax over almost any data source.
Okay. Are you blogging about this?
Blogging about.
Are you blogging at all? Why don't you promote your blog?
So my blog at codethinks.com. It's codethinked. The ed on the end of that. It's not super easy to type in. A lot of people get it wrong. So
put it on the screen.
Just Google for my name. Yeah, put it on the screen and Google for my name. I'm the first thing that comes up is my blog. So it's pretty easy to find.
Justin, thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Here at the MVP Summit, I have a lot of friends in technology.